They whispered about her behind the swinging doors of every saloon in Mesilla Creek. The widow's mourning veil hides more than her grief, they'd say, whiskey burning their throats as they spoke her name like a curse. Clara Sutton had buried her husband only 6 months before, a rancher respected by men and desired by women, gunned down in a dusty street duel that left his blood soaking into the earth of Main Street. But Clara, draped in black silk and lace, did not carry the quiet sorrow people expected of her. No, her eyes burned with something far more dangerous than loss, a hunger, a secret, and a dangerous longing that made even the bravest cowboys avert their gaze when she walked past. In a town that prized silence and survival, her presence was both temptation and threat. What no one dared to speak aloud was that her grief had tangled itself with desire, and her late husband's greatest rival had already found his way into her lonely nights. The truth was darker than any rumor. Clara's heart had not died with her husband. In the hushed shadows of her ranch house, where the desert wind slipped through broken shutters and the oil lamp painted flickering gold across her skin, she had surrendered her mourning veil to another man's hands. A man the town hated. A man whose very name was spat like venom. Colt Avery, the outlaw who had once drawn pistols against her husband, and now drew her closer under the cover of midnight. Theirs was not love born of purity, it was a storm of grief and forbidden desire, a secret affair carried out beneath desert stars that judged but never spoke. And so the scandal festered in silence, waiting for the day it would set the whole town aflame. The nights at Clara's ranch were no longer silent. Where once the lonely howl of coyotes was her only companion, now came the slow creak of boots across her porch, the whispered rasp of a revolver being laid aside, and the hushed murmur of a man's voice calling her name. Colt Avery did not enter her life like a lover, he broke into it like a thief, taking what the world had denied them both, comfort, warmth, and forbidden touch. By day, Clara moved through town with her head bowed, her black veil fluttering, her face unreadable. But by night, when the oil lamps flickered against adobe walls and the desert wind rattled the old shutters, she became someone else. In Colt's arms she was no grieving widow, but a woman aflame with need, her body and soul demanding what society had sworn she must bury. Still, each kiss carried the taste of danger. Clara knew the people of Mesilla Creek despised Colt Avery, blamed him for every theft, every fire, every missing herd. To be seen with him would not only ruin her reputation but condemn her to exile or worse. Yet her heart rebelled against reason. She found herself waiting for the sound of his boots in the dust, her breath quickening when shadows moved across her window. He touched her with hands scarred by violence, yet gentled by longing, and in the stolen hours they shared, she discovered a passion strong enough to drown her grief, but not her guilt. For somewhere deep inside, she could still feel her dead husband's shadow watching from the blood-stained street where he had fallen, and Clara knew that one day, the town, or fate itself, would demand a reckoning. Clara Sutton had begun to live 2 lives, and each one pulled her deeper into a fire she could neither escape nor extinguish. By day she still carried herself as the grieving widow, her black dress trailing in the dust of Mesilla Creek, her voice soft and polite when she greeted shopkeepers, her eyes lowered as if still drowned in sorrow. But the truth was that every glance she cast toward the horizon was a silent question: would Colt come tonight? Every sunset turned the sky into fire and gold, and with it her pulse began to race, because the night belonged not to her dead husband's memory, but to the outlaw who had claimed her heart in secret. When the oil lamp burned low, Colt Avery's shadow crossed her doorway. He never knocked, never asked permission, his boots announced him, his calloused hands claimed her, his rough voice whispered words that left her trembling in both fear and longing. She had thought grief would consume her, but in Colt's arms she discovered something far more dangerous, the rebirth of desire. Their meetings were stolen hours carved from the silence of the desert, their intimacy lit by nothing but moonlight spilling through the cracks of her window. His lips brushed away her tears, his fingers traced the lines of her sorrow, and Clara found herself surrendering piece by piece to the man her town hated most. Was it love, or was it simply need, the desperate hunger of 2 lost souls clinging to each other in defiance of the world? Some nights she would push him away, whispering that the risk was too great, that her husband's ghost still lingered in the walls. Other nights, she would pull him closer, drowning her fear in his warmth, telling herself that even sin felt holy when the desert winds howled outside. But always, when dawn painted the land in silver, Colt was gone, leaving only the faint smell of gunpowder and tobacco in her room, a reminder that she had given herself not to a safe man, but to a storm. And every time she stepped into town, every time the old women whispered and the cowboys spat at her name, she asked herself the question I'll ask you now. Would you risk everything, your reputation, your safety, even your soul, just to feel alive again? Right finger if you're still with me, drop a fire in the comments, because Clara's fire is just beginning. And trust me, what's coming next will burn hotter than the desert sun. The ranch became their sanctuary, and their prison. The same walls that had once echoed with her husband's stern voice now trembled with the sound of stolen whispers, soft laughter, and the faint creak of bedsprings beneath the weight of passion neither of them could deny. Colt Avery was not gentle by nature, yet with Clara, there was a softness that surprised even him. His scarred hands lingered on her skin as though each touch rewrote her past, as if he could erase the widow's loneliness with every kiss. She was no longer the grieving woman in black. She was alive, burning, radiant with a need that made her forget her own name. But the fear never left her. Every time his lips pressed against hers, she wondered if the neighbors could hear. Every time the oil lamp flickered, she imagined angry torches outside her door. Love had never felt so intoxicating, or so dangerous. And danger was closing in. Rumors had already begun to crawl through the town like snakes in the dust. They said Colt had been seen riding out of Clara's ranch at dawn. They said the widow was no longer pure, that her nights were haunted by more than grief. Men who once tipped their hats now glared with suspicion, and women who once offered sympathy now spat in the dirt when she passed. Still, Clara could not stop. Each night, when Colt pressed her against the cool adobe wall, when his breath tangled with hers and the desert's silence drowned out her doubts, she knew she was bound to him as tightly as a noose hangs from the gallows. One night, after hours of whispered confessions and trembling embraces, Colt pulled back, his eyes blazing with both love and defiance. "They'll come for me, Clara," he said. "And when they do, they'll come for you too. Tell me now, do you want me to stay, or to leave forever?" Her answer was a kiss that silenced the question. A kiss that sealed her fate. And now, I ask you, the one listening to this tale, what would you have done? Would you protect the outlaw who risked his life for love, or would you turn him away to save your name? Right finger if you've been pulled into this storm of forbidden love, hit the like button right now, and tell me in the comments, do you believe love is worth more than honor? Because Clara had made her choice. And her choice would set the desert on fire. The night the town finally came was the night Clara Sutton's world split in two. Torches lit the desert, angry voices rolled like thunder, and the people of Mesilla Creek marched not for justice but for blood. They dragged Colt Avery out into the open yard, his hands bound, his face bloodied yet unbroken. Clara stood at the doorway, her heart pounding against her ribs like a prisoner begging to escape. Every eye turned to her, demanding a verdict. Would she deny him and save herself, or confess the truth and burn with him in the flames of their forbidden love? Colt's gaze found hers, steady, fierce, unafraid. In that look was every night they had stolen, every whispered confession, every desperate embrace. He did not beg her to speak. He did not ask her to save him. He simply watched, and in that silence, Clara felt the weight of 1,000 choices. Her lips trembled, her voice cracked, and she cried out words that tore the desert apart. "I love him." The crowd roared in outrage, the sheriff raised his rifle, and the widow who once lived in shadow stepped forward into fire. Some say the outlaw was shot that night. Others claim Clara threw herself into the fray, clinging to him as bullets filled the air. And some whisper that the two vanished into the endless desert, never to be seen again, two souls who chose passion over the chains of the world. But one truth remains, the town that condemned them would never forget their love, because forbidden fire always leaves the deepest scars. Now tell me, dear listener, what do you believe happened that night? Would you stand with the law, or stand with love? And that, my friends, was the widow's secret affair, love and desire in the Old West. A story of passion, betrayal, and the kind of love that burns hotter than justice itself. If this tale pulled you in, if you felt the fire and the heartbreak, then don't just sit back, hit that like button right now, fire. Right finger subscribe to Wild West Tales so you never miss another journey into the dark, romantic heart of the frontier. And if you're ready for more secrets, more desire, and more danger, then go watch our other stories waiting for you on this channel, each one wilder, darker, and more unforgettable than the last. Because out here in the West, the story never ends.